Yeah, it is done. It is over for Jerry Jeudy. Browns head coach Todd Monken just made another move to the offensive staff. It is over for Jerry Jeudy. This dude saw how much of a bum Jerry Jeudy was last season. We got to get to it. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification, and hype the video. Let's get right into this one here. Boom. The Browns are retaining Christian Jones as a new wide receivers coach on Todd Monken's staff. Jones was hired as the Browns tight ends coach last season, and now he'll remain in Cleveland to coach the receivers. So Todd Monken is getting things together, man. Jerry Jeudy, count your days in Cleveland. Count your days. They're about to draft a receiver and get you up out of there, man. We have to get into it, man. I can't wait for Jerry Jeudy to be gone. But this is another great hire for Todd Monken. The tight ends were the best receivers on the Cleveland Browns last season. This dude coached up Harold Fannin, coached up Njoku. The tight ends were the most reliable receivers on the team. So hopefully he can get these receivers together and get Jerry Jeudy the hell up out of there. Let's go to 92.3 to fan to see what my boy Ertl Pearl had to say about some of these hires.
Last year, the New England Patriots finished the season 3-14. Just to turn around and be 14-3 this year and are headed to the Super Bowl. You've seen Drake May take a massive step forward. A lot of this contributes to, hiring Mike Vrabel and changing the culture of what the New England Patriots are. I think if you look at how they approached last offseason, first of all, they hit in the draft. But they were one of those rare teams that actually spent a lot of money in free agency and actually had that pay off for them right away. Normally, when you're a team that's not good record-wise and you make that approach in free agency, like, I'm going to improve my roster this way, it is tougher to do so via free agency versus the draft because it's not expected that hit rate to be very high. But you see what they've done and you see where they are now. And what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, listen, like what the Patriots did was a pretty remarkable thing. I think a number of factors kind of had to work in their favor. One of them being they needed the right coach, and clearly Mike Vrabel's that guy. I hear the comments that people make here in Cleveland about how the Browns should have never let him leave the building and all that, whatever. Now, if he had a chance to decide between the Browns and the Patriots, I bet you would have taken the Patriots anyway. But that's a big part of it. Like, do I see this happens all the maybe it doesn't go worst to first all the time, but every year there are teams that didn't make the playoffs the year before that make the playoffs that next year. The Bears are an example of that this year. There's some others that didn't make it last year. The Jaguars didn't make it last year. They make it this year and they turn themselves around. The Jaguars are another good example of like worst to first. Like they went, at least in their division, they were one of the top picks last year. As we know, because they made the trade with Cleveland. They were in the top 5 drafting, and then they're winning the division. Now they're picking in the late 20s, and the Browns get that pick. So, like, it's not that I don't think a turnaround like that can happen or it's reasonable. I think the big difference between the Patriots pulling that off this year and the Browns right now is that the Patriots knew, without question, Drake May is our quarterback of the future. He played a little bit the year before. And you got a sense to kind of see, okay, this guy might be it. He might be legit for them. He was a top pick for them, obviously. And they felt like they had that position figured out where they were like, okay, if we're good with that position, we can just add receivers, add offensive line help, because those were some of the weaknesses they had the year before. And so the Browns are kind of in a similar situation in that regard this year where it's like they need linemen, they need receivers. Can they bolster those areas? But the quarterback remains a question mark. Now, I think Shedeur Sanders has a chance to be good, but he was not putting up numbers that Drake May was putting up in his rookie season last year in the 7 games he started. So he's got some room to develop and grow and see what he can do. We know the Browns' approach to this. Todd Monken said it. Andrew Berry said it. They're gonna. It's to be determined. They're gonna weigh their options. They're gonna see what's out there. They're gonna figure out what they want it to look like. I think Shedeur is gonna be a part of it, but I can't sit here today on February 7th and tell you they have that position figured out, and I think that's the biggest thing preventing them from making some like worst to first turnaround and being a legit like deep playoff run team next year.
when I look at the New England Patriots, right, and they got their quarterback situation together, they started to make the necessary moves to build out their offensive line. You can see how they had drafted players in years past to where they were building up their defensive line. And the New England Patriots is a football team, regardless of how Drake May's numbers look passing wise, they can complement that with a solid run game. And I think that Mike Vrabel has done a phenomenal job of building a team in the trenches, a team that can run the football and then complement the pass with the run game. And a lot of that, it happens off the field. When you take a guy like I think his name is Michael Thomas, right? The pass game coordinator, a guy like that, and entrust him to do his job. When you look at just the entire coaching staff and Vrabel delegating those responsibilities and allowing those coaches to develop the players that's internal, I think that says a lot. I go back to what Stephon Diggs said during, this week of interviews, and they asked him, a team that had a record that poor last year, you wasn't worried about, coming here as a free agent? And he said, no, that's for all y'all in the media and the fans to worry about. But this team had a good head coach, a good quarterback, and a good defense. And so one of the three questions, based on what he says it takes for a player to commit, is already answered. The other two is to be determined as far as Cleveland Browns are concerned. So
I think that's well said. Like, that's a really good point that he brings up, like those three key things, because you're right. The defensive part is taken care of. Now it's about like the coach they bring in, if they have the right leader, and do they have the right quarterback? And I think that's the one that's probably the biggest question right now. We don't know how Todd Monken's going to be as a coach either. But yeah, man, like it's interesting. Like there's going to be, like, of all the teams that are drafted near the top of the draft this year, I think the Giants are probably like the closest to competing. Like, they have a roster that feels pretty ready to compete. Mm-hmm. So we'll see if John Harbaugh can kind of get them over the hump. And they think they have their quarterback position figured out too with Jackson Dart. That's still the biggest piece for the Browns. But the other thing I'll say too, though, is in this division, this is another factor. Like, there's Mike McCarthy we've seen coach before, so you kind of have a sense of like where his team could be. Everyone's predicting the Steelers are going to be like 9-8 again. But of all the teams in this division, like, there's three teams with new coaches. So there actually is like a really big opportunity here. If Todd Monken proves to be an amazing coach, maybe I am gonna sound like an idiot, because even if he doesn't have the greatest quarterback situation, or he doesn't know what his answer is as a quarterback, maybe he'll be able to draft a bunch of guys, bring in some guys in free agency, and then squeeze a lot of juice out of this team and somehow find a way to scratch and claw their way through this division. I'm not betting that, but at the same time,